What are those questions that you constantly are asking yourself? What sparks your curiosity? And even more importantly, what is going to spark the curiosity in your audience? Hi, I'm Carol Cox, host of the Speaking Your Brand podcast, joined by our lead speaking coach, Diane Diaz. Hi, Diane.
Well, hi, Carol.
For the last few episodes, I've been talking quite a bit about our idea of the expert trap. And when we get stuck hiding behind our expertise, we lose out on making a deeper connection with our audience and also truly helping our audience discover more about themselves, where they want to go, and the transformation that they want. I talked about how AI can be helpful in some instances, but that it fundamentally lacks curiosity about us because it can't have curiosity. It's a machine, it's not a person. It can have engagement and it's very clever at keeping you engaged on the platform, but it really can't provide that true curiosity. And just last week, I was reading an article in the New York Times, and it said that curiosity is actually a feature of our biology. This is why we have it as humans and the machines don't have it. It's part of our biology because it's to help us to learn more broadly. Because when you have a gap between what you want to know and what you want to find out, that gap is what causes you to want to seek out information, experiment, try new things, and to learn. But what often happens is that when we get so close to our own topics, our industries, the work we've been doing in our careers and our businesses for so long, is that we stop being curious. We know so much, and this happens to all of us, that we know the answers to the common questions, or we know what to expect. And so we need to add that sense of serendipity and surprise and counterintuitiveness to what we're doing in our work, in our body of work with our thought leadership, our signature talks, and the ideas that we want to bring out into the world. So Diane has been, of course, listening to these episodes that I've been doing, and she had her own insights. So we were chatting about this, and I was like, well, why don't we just come on the podcast and have this conversation live? All right, Diane, so I'm going to turn the conversation over to you.
Yes, we were having those conversations because I had been listening to those podcast episodes, and then I thought, I am someone who is endlessly curious. I think I relayed to you, Carol, in a conversation we were having where I'll be walking in the morning and then I'll just random thoughts, right? Going through my head and I'll think, maybe I see something. I'm like, oh, I wonder how that machine works that I see, right? So I look it up. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then that leads me to like, oh, wait, how much do machines like that cost? And then I research that, right? And so like, just one thing to another, because I could research anything, like, because I just like to know because I have this curiosity, right? And I think, and the article you were talking about kind of bears this out, that using AI is fine, of course, but we sort of might be losing our curiosity by maybe relying on it too much because, as you just said, AIs can't be curious. They're not humans. But they don't even push you to be curious because they are just trying to give you the right answer. How about this? And then you type one more thing. Oh, how about this? Oh, you didn't like that? Well, how about this? But it never explores something tangentially related to it, right? Where my brain and a lot of people's brains, it goes from one thing to the next that aren't necessarily connected, but I learn a lot. And sometimes those things I learn that don't seem related come back later to something that I'm working on. But we're kind of losing that if we're just relying only on AI because you can't get that from the AI.
Right. And we think about neural networks. So in our brains, we have neural networks, these large language models. That's how they're constructed, which is via neural networks. And neural networks are very efficient because they put similar things together. So animals sit in one part of our neural network, and part of ChatGPT's neural network. It says, okay, cat, dog, fish, cow, pig, like they're all animals and they all have these features and these activities. So they kind of sit there. And then over here are other things, related to like the industry that we're in and kind of the things that happen to go on. So in large language models, you can't get them to cross-pollinate, but you really have to try. They're not going to do it on their own. But for us, Diane, that's how we love to work. We work with hundreds of clients over the years, and I don't even think we're consciously doing it, but our clients will talk about something, we'll ask them questions. And I think we are making these leaps across our own neural networks because we're looking for the stuff that's interesting, that's not the same old stuff that we've always heard, but is the stuff that is like, oh, that piques our curiosity as well.
Yes, and we don't have as I say, the curse of knowledge, right? We are not in their industry. Maybe we know a little bit about it, but we're sort of outside the work they do. And so we're not looking at it from the standpoint of, let me get you the right answer. We're looking at it from the standpoint of, oh, I could be in that audience. What's interesting to me? Oh, how about this little thing you said over here about when you were a child? AI is not going to ask you, well, what that thing about when you were a child, how does that play into your message? It's not going to ask you those things, but that's what we're looking for because we're sort of the audience. We're the lay people looking at this message and how can it be more interesting? How will it engage me? How will it excite me? Right? How will I want to know more about it?
That is so true because one of the questions we ask in our very first Thought Leader Academy group call is, what did you like to do when you were a
Yes.
little kid growing up? And I love hearing the different answers, and there's a lot of commonalities. And we will oftentimes in the VIP day ask clients about some formative experience they had when they were growing up, or why they got interested in the thing that they do,
Mhm.
not necessarily because that story is going to end up in the talk. Most of the time it doesn't end up in the talk. That's not why we ask it, but we're
Right.
probing for something deeper. And I can say, after using ChatGPT for almost 4 years, it has never once asked me what I like to do when I was a little kid growing up.
No, it's so true. And I think that goes to that point I was making to you earlier, Carol, when we were messaging back and forth about this idea of, you know, you can just look to children, right, for this idea of curiosity, because we do sort of, even as adults, I mean, never mind AI, we just as adults kind of lose our curiosity because we are looking for the right answer, right? Because we have jobs to do and all of that. But children will ask the most random questions and connect questions to other questions that have nothing to do with each other, but they go on and on and on because they don't know anything, right? And they're just learning, and so they just ask, like, why is the sky blue? Why is the grass green? Like, great question, I don't know the answer to that, right? But these are curiosities, and I feel like that's sort of what is happening with maybe the over reliance on AI tools. I mean, certainly don't use AI to create your talk, because it is not going to probe you that way. It is not going to lead you to, the fact, for instance, that I love education because I grew up poor and I knew education was my way out of that. AI is never going to know that about me, but that might make its way into my message about why it's important to tell your story, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so not only is it kind of something to be mindful of as far as when you're using these AI chatbots and thinking that it can help you to tease out what your core idea is or your signature talk is, and it can put together a very polished outline. And again, it sounds great. I talked about this a few episodes ago that in more detail. Is that the other thing that I see happen with some of our clients who come to us is that they've worked with other speaking coaches
Mm,
before they found us. And a lot of times, unfortunately, what those coaches did was not really coaching, and it was not creating a deliverable for them. It was giving them a formula for them to fill out on their own that said, like, open with your story and then fill. It's almost like a Mad Libs. I don't know if Mad Libs
right.
are still around, but like a Mad Libs where it's like, fill this in and then fill this section in and then fill this section in. And sure, in the signature talk canvas framework that we use, we do have an overall narrative arc that we're building towards, but it is not formulaic. It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, you must always start with the story or you must always have this in this place, because every person's talk is different. Every person's personality is different. Some clients want to kind of get the first nervous energy out. So we recommend do a couple of show of hands questions when
Mhm.
you first start versus launching into a story where you're not quite feeling ready for that. So if you are looking at other speaking coaches, which of course we recommend, do your due diligence, is figure out, are they going to hand you a bunch of templates and a formula for you to fill out on your own and not really get a lot of help with, or are
Mhm.
they the ones doing the work, what I call the heavy lifting for you? Because if you could do it on your own, you would have already done it. It's really
Right.
hard to do on your own. You need someone else to do this for you because you're too close to your own thoughts.
Yes, that's a really good point because, again, AI is not a person. And so you can't bounce your ideas off of it in the way that you can with me or you working in a VIP day or in the Thought Leader Academy group calls where you're bouncing it off of other TLA clients. You need those outside perspectives because it is hard for us, being inside our own heads, right, to have necessarily the curiosity about ourselves. But other people can ask us questions. And then I can't tell you how many times I've been in a VIP day and just in casual conversation, a client will mention something about where they used to live or something they did as a child or a previous job they had. And then later on, as we're working together, I'm like, oh, remember when you said blah, blah, blah? Let's go back to that. And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, let's just go back to it. And then we start talking about it. And all of a sudden, this huge epiphany, and it just opens up this path for the talk out of just a conversation. But that is really hard to replicate with an AI. That has to be done with a human.
Right. It's not going to come out with some formula
No.
that someone hands you and says fill in the blanks of this. That's because that's not how you get to a talk that is different from what everyone else gives.
Right.
Because speaking is getting more competitive. There's more people out there who want to be speakers. Event organizers have a lot more choices. We want you to be well positioned. We want you to be able to get those speaking engagements. Hopefully, if you found us and Speaking Your Brand, you align with our mission of amplifying women's voices for positive change. So we want you out there sharing your message, and we want you to have the strongest, most powerful, most engaging, most compelling talk that you possibly can. And what really kind of disheartens me is when I see women come to us who have tried other avenues and they get a little bit defeated because they spent a lot of either, time, effort, money, resources, mental energy that they've done, and they don't feel like they've gotten what they were looking for. And so then not that they want to give up, they're not giving up because they find us and they come to us, but they almost kind of have to get past that little bit of like, oh, it didn't work out for me. And then but what we provide them, I kind of, we call ourselves speaking coaches, and we are because we will, provide our insights and our guidance, and we'll ask you questions, but we also do the work. Like we're
Yes.
very big
Yes.
on like, we're going to create that talk from beginning to end. It's not halfway done. It's not like you have pieces scattered here and there and you don't know how to put them together. Like we are the type of people, we're going to get the thing done for you, and it's going to be exactly what you were hoping for. And then you're going to put it out into the world with our help.
Yes. Yes. And one of the other things that you've mentioned is this idea, if we were talking about the VIP day, this idea of the constraint, right? Is that if you're using ChatGPT, I mean, it's happened to me, it's happened to you, Carol, it's probably happened to everybody. You can go on and on and on and on. And it seems to, in my experience with it, again, I'm not knocking AI tools, but my experience with it is that it's almost too much, right? Like there is no constraint. It's unlimited information, but that doesn't help me because I'm trying to create something that's tangible, right? So in a VIP day, we have 3 hours. And that seems like, well, how on earth? Like I'd need weeks to create a talk. No, you don't, right? We're going to create your talk in a 3-hour block because that constraint makes us have to pinpoint ideas. We have to key in on certain stories. And yes, we're going to dive deeper on things. We're going to talk about some things more than we're going to talk about other things, but we have a set time frame. And just from the experience of working with so many clients in VIP days, we know, we start out, lots of conversation, we get to the middle, it feels like it's a little bit of a mess, and then it starts to pull together, everything starts to coalesce towards the second part of that VIP day into a completed talk. So that constraint's actually beneficial. So rather than just circling the AI drain constantly, and, thinking about the idea 6 ways from Sunday and never getting anywhere, you actually get somewhere. Because again, we have the benefit of being able to have that curiosity on your behalf.
It reminds me of Parkinson's law, which says that the work will fill the time that you have allotted for it. And I can't tell you how much I
It's true.
experience this personally. Like if I'm saying I'm going on a trip and I know I only have a certain number of hours to finish whatever work it happens to be for the week before I have to, leave to go on that trip. Oh my gosh, it will get done that week versus other weeks where I'm like, oh, I have until Friday to get this done. And guess how long it will take?
Till Friday.
And it will
That's
take me
right.
3 times as long sitting in front of my computer as it does when I know I only have a certain limited amount of time.
That is absolutely 100% true. And so I think having that constraint also creates more, it not only creates a final tangible product of a talk, but it creates more action, right? Because you can't, if you don't have the talk, you can't really do anything. You're not going to go pitch yourself because you don't have a talk yet, right? You don't know how to talk about what you're going to talk about because you don't have a talk yet. But having that set time frame and that constraint of it's going to get done in 3 hours. Now you have a talk. Oh, now I know what my message is. I know what my stories are. I know how to talk about my talk. I know how to pitch myself, right? Because now you have the thing. But, you can spend eons going around and around and around with AI and never get to that point. And that's I've experienced that myself. And it's actually very frustrating. And sometimes I just get frustrated. I'm like, okay, I got to put away the AI. I need to just start using my own noodle.
I know. It's like there's so much, I do enjoy about AI and there's certain capabilities it has that I very much appreciate. But then other times I'm just like, you know what? I kind of wish I could just get back to just only knowing that I have my own brain to rely on.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, Carol, because it's so funny because like I love when I'm in a VIP day and a client they sort of stumble upon like their own curiosity, right? They sort of like trip over it. And it's like, oh, look at that. Like here we are at this thing. I didn't even see where this was going because that's how curiosity goes. And I love when I personally am going down some rabbit hole. I think I could, if they had a job where your job was to just Google things and learn about random things, I could do that job because I just love to learn about anything. But I think having that curiosity within the constraint of a 3-hour VIP day is magical.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point about you can't really create other things until you have that signature message and that signature talk done, because that is the clear, cohesive embodiment of what your body of work is. And you need that like literally mapped out. And that's what we do. And then you can create the downstream assets from it. Because now okay, here's how I'm positioning myself as a speaker. Here's what I'm going to put on my speaker page, on my LinkedIn profile, my speaker proposals. Here's how I'm going to now feel more confident, increasing my fees that I'm going to charge for speaking. So all of that comes downstream. And I feel like so many people do it the other way, which is they're trying to have ChatGPT create all these assets for them, but they don't yet have that clear, coherent, unique thought leadership message that's going to help them to stand out and going to differentiate them from all the other speakers in their industry. They need that first before they're creating all the materials.
Yes. And it sort of like that idea applies even to the VIP days. Like we have to kind of get messy, right? And it has to be like because how many times do clients say, oh, I've got so many ideas in my head. I just don't know what to do with them. Yeah, exactly. Let's dump them all out. It's going to be a mess. And then we're going to pull out the ones that make sense, because then we're going to start having these conversations. And then, as I said, at the end, it coalesces into this amazing talk.
So I know I've told this story in the podcast before, but it's been a while, how the 3-hour VIP day came about. And I think it's useful for this idea, number one, of the value of constraint, but also the value of you don't need to do as much preparation as you may think that you need to do. So this came up, this was, I think, in 2018. So I had started kind of speaking your brand in 2015, but really got kind of more, geared up with clients in 2016 and 2017. And at the time, a client would engage me for a coaching agreement, and we would do 6 weeks or 8 weeks, like a typical kind of what a business coach would do, where we would meet once a week for an hour, because I modeled myself after the business coaches that were around back then. So we would meet for an hour or so. I would ask them questions, put in a Google Doc. I kind of had the outline of the talk structure that would work well. And I would move stuff around in the Google Doc. And, and then I worked with Tammy Lally on her TEDx talk that, of course, ended up blowing up to 2 million plus views. And that's when I started with the poster board with the Post-it notes, but it was all scattered, Post-it notes everywhere. And there wasn't as much rhyme and reason as there was when I developed it. But that still wasn't a 3-hour VIP day. That was multiple hours over a long period of time. And then a woman contacted me on a Monday, or maybe it was even a Tuesday morning. And she said, and she had come referred from someone, and we had a consultation call. I think it was on a Tuesday. And she said, I have a speaking engagement coming up and I really need you to help me create my talk. I'm like, great, sure. When do you want to start? She said, well, my speaking engagement is this Saturday. And this was Tuesday.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And she traveled a lot for the job that she had. So she's basically like looked at her calendar. She's like, the only availability I have would be like Thursday morning from 9 to noon, the 3 hours. I was like, okay, let's do it.
Wow.
So we did it. I did. By that point, I had the poster board with the post like that, had all that framework already, that I was using. So we did it and it was amazing. We got it done in the 3 hours. She felt great. She did the speaking engagement on Saturday. Her content, her stories, she knew what she needed to talk about. She needed the flow and she needed to know what was the most important stuff to include and what could be excluded. And we did it. And hence the 3-hour VIP day was born. And we've done it hundreds of times ever since.
Yes. And that's a really great story because I feel like I personally believe that the 3-hour VIP day yields a better talk than if you did work on it for months. Because, Carol, let's just talk about our own personal experiences with this, because you and I, once upon a time, a couple of years ago, applied to speak at this TEDx style event, and we auditioned for it, literally found out we were auditioning, I think, the week before, pulled something together, auditioned, and then had like another week or two to then practice it and deliver it, which was with no notes or anything, no slides. It was TEDx style. So it was 8 minutes. We had to pull I had to pull that whole talk together, and you did too, in like a 4-week period. And so if that, it was crazy. My final delivery was pretty much my audition.
Yes.
So, because I didn't really change anything about it. So the honest truth is, if I had had months to work on that, number one, I wouldn't have started immediately. Number two, I would have gone around and around and around with ideas and talked myself out of some things and not made decisions on things. And then, come to the, 2 weeks before I'm supposed to deliver it I would probably be more frazzled. But having that constraint of only a few weeks to pull it together, I had to be very decisive. This gets cut. This stays in. I practice. Okay, that has to go away. I'm done. And it was amazing.
Because we were busy. Because also we had like Thought Leader Academy going and our workshop going, and we had our university stuff going. Like we had a lot going on. And I remember we were like, why did we sign up for this, number one? But of course, we're glad we did, because it does teach us about, like you're exactly to your point. The longer runway you have, it seems appealing at the time, but it's usually not the case.
Not the case at all. And I learned that from you early on, is that I used to start on presentations very far ahead, but what that did was just stress me out. And now I've learned, it's not like I wait till the last minute, but I do not start very far ahead. I give myself enough time, but I have a constraint on it, because I know, okay, I have this amount of time to work on it. I'm going to get it done. And then once it's done, it's done. I'm not going to keep rethinking it and rethinking, that's what AI leads us to do.
Plus, you use our signature talk canvas framework to lay out the structure of the talk. So you're not starting from a blank document or a blank slide deck. That is stressful. Right. And you will keep going around and around in circles and second guessing yourself. But when you know, again, not a formula, but when you know, okay, Act 1 needs to accomplish this, Act 2 needs to accomplish this, Act 3 needs to accomplish this, you know what content pieces you need to fill in.
Absolutely. Put structure around it. And that's almost a constraint, right? Because again, it's not a formula, but it's the constraint of, it has a certain structure so that the audience has a certain experience. And if you're working to that, then that makes it a lot easier.
And to my point about you need less preparation than you think. So not only for your talks, but also for the VIP day itself, because that example of that woman I talked to who we talked on Tuesday, she had her VIP day Thursday morning, and then she spoke on Saturday. She had 0 time to prep. She couldn't spend hours putting together past materials or answering the homework questions or anything like that. It was basically like she showed up. She knew her stuff. I had to ask the right questions to get the right information, to get it into a compelling talk. And we were able to do it. Because sometimes I will talk to
Yeah.
prospective clients and they'll say, well, I don't feel ready because I need to first like go put my presentation together and go put my slides together and go, think through all these things and do some more research. And I'm thinking, I know, like, if you are coming to us, you are an accomplished woman
Yes.
who has experience in your career and in your business and the industry and what you do. You are ready. If we could start the VIP day literally right now, sometimes I'll
Yeah.
tell them on the console call, we could start
Yes.
right now or tomorrow
Mhm.
morning with zero preparation on your part. I really don't need to do any preparation on my part, as far as I don't need to go do a whole bunch of research on your
Right.
industry. Because to our earlier conversation about curiosity, I want to bring myself and my
Yes.
curiosity to, I don't want to have the answers for you
Right.
because I shouldn't have the answers.
Yes, absolutely. 100% agree with that. There is so many times clients say, oh, I didn't know what I was supposed to prepare. Nothing. You have to prepare anything. You show up and then we just start talking and asking questions and we will get to the talk.
And I know this seems really probably very like, come on, you guys, really? This is how it works,
Yeah,
but
right.
it really does.
It really does work that way. Yeah.
It's like, because we've put in the muscle memory and we put in
Yes.
the reps of this so many times that I was on doing some consult calls in the past week and some of the women were telling me their ideas for their topics. And instantly I was like, oh, I know how to make this more compelling
Yes.
as like more of an idea, not just a topic. And instantly I knew what it was because I've trained my brain to look for
Mhm.
these things. And that's where our zone of genius lies.
Yes, which is again something that the AI cannot do for you. This is what our human brains, through having done many VIP days on a variety of topics, everything from wellness coaching to pharmacy to nuclear engineering, literally. And yes, I don't have to become a nuclear engineer or an expert in that in order to help someone in that field create a talk, right? So that's what we bring, is the ability to just ask those questions, take what you're saying, find the stories, and put together that talk.
Yeah. And this is why we love the work that we do, because we love to learn. We love to learn about
Yes.
you as the person, what makes you tick, what has shaped
Mhm.
you, why you love what it is that you do and what you're talking about. And we want that passion that you have to come through in your message and in your talk. So as we kind of think about this idea of curiosity, so we mentioned obviously the curiosity that we have about you and what you want to share with your audience. The other important thing is that you having curiosity about
Mhm.
your audience too.
Yes.
And this is part of the expert trap where
Mm.
we hold on so tightly to what we want to share, our expertise, everything we know, our knowledge. And yes, you should share those insights and those lessons and what you've learned over the years from your experience and your expertise, but also about being curious about your audience. What do they need? It's not just about what you want to share, but what does your audience need? And that's part of the questions that we end up asking you in the VIP day, is to probe a little bit more about the types of people in your audience. Where are they at and where do they want to go and where are they feeling stuck? That's that sense of curiosity is also helpful for you to bring to the work that you're doing.
That's such a good point.
And then the third aspect of curiosity, so we said our curiosity about you, your curiosity about your audience. And obviously, your audience needs to have curiosity about whatever it is that you're presenting to them, your topic, and curiosity about you. And that's where some personal stories do come in, because they don't just want to hear the information. They can get that from ChatGPT. Frankly, they already
Mhm.
are getting it from
Mhm.
Claude or ChatGPT. They want to be curious about you. Like what has shaped you? Just like we're curious about you, so are they. And so that's why those personal stories, were as appropriate for your content and your topic, are something that we highly encourage and that we integrate, help you integrate in that VIP day.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'd like to give a visual for how you can
Mhm.
think about this, right? So
Yeah.
there are libraries now that shall remain nameless that, but these are across the country, that they are removing the stacks from the library. And instead the books are going to these giant metal bins that in a room that you do not access. And then you go tell the probably one librarian that you need X book. You need to know which that exact book is. And then they will punch it into the system, and the retrieval system will go get it and drop it in a chute to them. So which sounds like, oh, much more efficient. However, what we lose is curiosity. We lose, oh, I think I want a book on this topic. I go look it up, then I go to where it is. I'm like, I open it up, I thumb through it. Not quite what I'm looking for, but hey, look at this book next to it. Let me get that. Right. Oh, look at that. That's interesting. Oh, let me go look. There's another book down there that I see. Let me look at that. Right. And before you know it, we've explored different ideas. Because again, that is what Carol and I bring to the table, is this idea of exploring different ideas. So when you're thinking about, what is the difference between me trying to do this on my own or having AI help me versus coming to the Thought Leader Academy, working with human beings who know the questions to ask and will probe on things that may seem unrelated. Think of it as that example of walking through the stacks, right? Getting to explore all the ideas versus just that one idea. And it doesn't go any further. And it just sort of always goes back to that one idea, right? That's the difference.
Yes. I love that visual, Diane. I that is so perfect. I have spent many, many hours at university libraries, and I loved it. I found so many things that I wouldn't otherwise have found by browsing the bookshelves and flipping through the books, like, oh, bibliography. Oh, they mentioned this. Let me go find that book. And that's why, I read on Kindle now because I like the larger font size, but I do miss being able to page through books, easily to find things. And I will often go, there's an independent bookstore here in Winter Park near where we live, and I call Writer's Block Bookstore. And I will often go in there to browse around, and my eye will catch books that I have not come across otherwise. I haven't seen, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. Usually I will buy one or two books because I want to support the independent bookstore. And so not only is this something that AI is not good at, but also our social media algorithms are now trained to give us more of what we already have expressed interest in, because we watch that video for 1.5 seconds longer than some other video. So it's going to keep feeding us that same type of content. So it's like we're getting so much homogenized content, and we're not seeing other things that also kind of help us to find where the intersection of ideas makes things interesting.
Let's look at this as an opportunity for you, the listener and the speaker, to not be like other speakers maybe that are staying in the homogeneous zone of information, right? And you can really step outside of that and create a talk that is interesting, engaging, has story, maybe meanders off to something slightly related and then brings it on back to the main topic, right? You could really stand out by focusing on curiosity.
Yes. Oh, and humor. Honestly, ChatGPT is not good with humor.
Terrible.
You have to have humor in your talk. We intentionally find places for you to put it in, and we have techniques for you to do. That's one of the things we work on. We've done other episodes on humor. I'll link to those in the show notes, but that is one thing that I think a lot of speakers miss, and certainly AI misses putting into any talk outline you would have it create for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I really firmly believe that humor comes from curiosity, right? Because when you're curious, you see things as funny. Like I've gotten into this habit lately of taking really mundane things and like just anything and like breaking it down to make it seem so ridiculous. For example, this was during football season, who decided that one guy's going to hold the football and he's going to bend over, and then the other guy's going to stand behind him with his hands on him, and then he's going to pass the ball through his legs. And obviously that's how the game works. But just when I start breaking down things to their simplest terms and like, who decided this was going to happen this way, it makes it hilarious, right? But humor comes from curiosity. So like in me thinking about like, really, how did that come to be? Like, it's ridiculous, right? But obviously that's how it works, but it's just so funny. But you have to be curious in order to wrap the humor in there. And again, AI cannot do that. It cannot do it for you.
I've asked this sometimes, like, oh, what would be some humorous points to make about whatever? It is so bad. It's even worse than the dad jokes. Like, it is bad.
Dad jokes at least make you chuckle. AI jokes do not make you even chuckle. They're terrible.
So bad. So bad. All right. So hopefully this has been helpful for you listening. Lean into your curiosity
Yes.
and, curiosity for yourself, for your audience, what they need to hear from you, what they want to know about you, how they want to learn more about themselves. And if you would like to work with us, the humans, on your thought leadership message and your signature talk, as well as the business of speaking, you can reach out to us. The best thing to do is to schedule a consultation call with us. We'll chat with you about your goals, answer your questions, and see which program is the best fit for you. And you can do that by going to speakingyourbrand.com/contact. Well, Diane, thank you so much for joining me today on the Speaking Your Brand podcast.
That was a fun conversation, Carol.
Until next time, thanks for listening.